Thank you to the ranking member. I now recognize the gentlelady from Florida, Ms. Lee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Dr. Sherman, I'd like to pick up right where you left off and talk a little bit further about the Federal Air Marshal's roadmap and some of the initiatives that are outlined there. Can you tell me, are there any particular initiatives in that roadmap that have not yet been implemented that you think are important for the roadmap?
Yeah, thank you. So we actually have at GAO taken a look at the implementation of that roadmap since its issuance from last year. In fact, stated in the document itself at the very end, it highlights the fact that it was going to take about 18 months at the end of this year for largely kind of a substantive implementation to occur, and even another 6 months before there are sufficient performance measures to understand the efforts. As part of that roadmap, there's absolutely, though, areas that we think that will help to potentially address some of these issues, but also to keep FAMs kind of at bay, or I should say, sorry, at pace with current threats. For example, building or increasing field-based capabilities to be able to address some of the additional threats around insiders and cybersecurity that are continuing to emerge.
And tell us a little more about that, if you would. Any specific recommendations or insight about how they might build those field-ready capabilities?
Yeah, no insight at this stage. It's something that we absolutely believe is important for us to take a closer look at in terms of the implementation of the roadmap, whether or not the strategies that are being carried out align with the objectives and the priorities that are set forth. And we also think that it would be a good time for us to revisit the FAMS deployment strategy and get a better understanding of progress made there as well.
Mr. Casaretti, turning to you, how do the operational air marshals on the ground feel about that roadmap? Is it your assessment that they are supportive of it, that they're believers in it, or are there concerns about it?
Congressman, I don't think the air marshals even understand the roadmap. We had submitted a detailed future committee with a bunch of recommendations, and I've spoken to the current and former directors about implementing it and making us more able to meet insider threats on the ground and have meaningful work at the airport. But nothing really has been done. Even the AVO program I mentioned earlier in my statement, FAMs are just placed in airports without training, without guidance, and they were pretty much told to walk around. And we don't think that's an effective use of us. In a lot of ways, it's an insult of what we know in our experience.
And on that point, if you would help us with just a little bit of background, those who are currently serving in the Federal Air Marshal Program, are they sworn law enforcement officers?
Yes, ma'am.
So you all have the ability and the background and the training to be doing that sort of investigation, insider threat assessment, and things that you refer to?
Yes and no. And the reason I'll say no is because we've suffered an incredible brain drain over the last few years. The air marshals that came on post 9/11, like myself, they've mostly retired. And we have now air marshals that came on and have no other law enforcement experience except what TSA has taught them. We're not in love with what TSA has taught us. A lot of us have crutched off of our prior training and experience to do actions at airports. I myself was on a ground team twice around for about 2 years and 2 months, and I was able to develop a lot of casework, but that was all based upon my prior training and experience, none of what was taught to me in the FAM service. So I think there's a real challenge right now that training has got to bump up, which is why we keep going back to training. We have a fresh group of people and they need to be taught how to do this kind of work.
I'd like to hear a little bit more about what you just described. So during your work on the ground team, when you were able to develop and make cases, so for us, a distinction, of course, at some point, an FBI agent or a HSI agent could bring a federal case, build an investigation, but you clearly are seeing a role for the federal air marshals to do more and to do more of that frontline work investigating and bringing cases. Could you describe for us the types of things, the types of situations and cases that you have investigated and what you think the air marshals could be adding if they were given appropriate training?
Of course, a lot of the cases I developed were based upon plain view and me being at the airport. Basic law enforcement tactics, you put yourself in the place where you can see bad things happening. What we were doing at the time was we had a training of the TSA BDO component, Behavioral Detection Officers. They were under the Federal Air Marshals for a short time. So I trained them on bag searches. I trained them on properly dumping out a bag to feel the weight of it in case there was precursor chemicals in it. And when they did that kind of search, I was able to see a lot of things because they were doing a proper search. Things that were uncovered were multiple credit cards unsigned going foreign. So that's a CMIR, Currency and Monetary Instrument Reporting Act violation that I was able to notify customs about. You'll see if you're down by the areas where baggage is being screened, you may see a lot of organics coming through an e-scan machine. I was able to seize $110,000, get a DEA agent on site, and we were able to do 13 arrests and close 2 cases the following day at Newark. There are ways to build the air marshals into current TSA operations to utilize us as law enforcement and as investigators. But TSA is so risk adverse, they do not want us to do these things. And I think one of the things that we have been trying to get them to do is to look at intelligence, to deploy us based upon intelligence, and to look at what we're able to do at the airports so we can identify these insider threat incidents and we can get some casework developed. If we develop casework at the airport, it'll naturally lead to intelligence, and that'll naturally keep the whole domain safer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.